Hi. Anyway, it's my pleasure to introduce Matt today, who's going to discuss his journey with AS Watson. And if you don't know them, he's going to explain all that. And really, he's going to ask you a question, but a journey starts somewhere, and he's describing the steps that they've gone on to their journey and the impact that this is hopefully going to bring to the organisation that he represents. It's interesting. We have, for an organisation ourselves, have learned quite a lot of stuff around the journey. And I think it's quite exciting that we got Matt here, who's now going to present what he's going to do. In effect, if anyone remembers Penn and Teller, right? I'm the quiet one. I should be the quiet one. I'm Teller, but you can never shut me up. So hopefully, Matt, it's over to you. You're the intelligent one, so back to you. And then hopefully we're going to get some time for questions afterwards.
Right, well, good morning, everyone. Is that working? Yeah, good. So, yeah, my name's Matthew Lucas. I work for a company called AS Watson. I'm here to talk to you about our journey with analytics we've been on for the last 12 months. My role is I am embedded within the IT team at AS Watson. I'm a head of IT, but it's departmental head, and I look after HR and people systems on behalf of my organisation. Can I just start by conducting a quick kind of survey? Can you just put your hand up for me if you're either starting, in the process of starting, or at the beginning of your journey on analytics? So who's kind of in your organisation? Oh, okay. So not tons. So hopefully I've got an interesting story for those of you that are way down the line. But our story today is about starting. So my company officially started our analytics journey 12 months ago. And my hope was that this would find something you would find useful. But if there's people there that are way down the line already, then at least I hope you find it interesting. So AS Watson. AS Watson isn't the most well-known organisation, certainly not in Europe. Some of you may have Googled it if you saw us on the agenda. Come on, hands up who knew who AS Watson was before today. One. I'm not having a good hit rate at the moment. So we are, in fact, the world's largest health and beauty retailer. It's not exclusively health and beauty, but it's a retail business, and the largest portion is health and beauty. Globally, we operate 12 brands. 10 of those brands are in Europe. We operate in 29 markets. 16 of those markets are in Europe. We've got 16, in fact, it's well over 16,000. It's more like 16,500 physical stores, 5,000 based in the European region. And globally, our headcount is 130,000 people, with 62,000 or thereabouts being based in Europe. So I guess that's a lot of numbers, maybe fitting for a data conference, but it doesn't really tell you who we are. So these are our brands. So hopefully there's at least a few, at least one or two, I would hope, that most of you recognise. So enough about AS Watson. My mission today is to try and summarise the last 12 months into approximately 15 to 20 minutes, going from being set a challenge a year ago to finding a way to support our HR and embedding analytics into their function, to where we are today, which is feeling like we've at least started the journey and we're in a decent place. So to do that, I want to focus in on three things. So I'm going to talk about how do we set out our strategy in the beginning. We then went on to run a proof of concept over the summer last year, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why we did that and what its purpose was and what we learned from it. And then the third point is, where are we today? Have we started our journey? Where have we started it and why? So how we went about setting out a strategy. So AS Watson is actually already a very data-driven organisation. So there are lots of teams around our business who use data to generate insights and add value to our business that help support decisions that move the business forward. However, you'll see from their names up there, they're almost all focused exclusively on the commercial side of our business. So whether they're looking at pricing and promotions, customer behaviour, whether they're looking at customer satisfaction, or whether they're looking at e-commerce activity. But crucially, there's no people slide up there. There's no one looking at HR. And these are big teams, right? So when I say we're invested in data, these aren't just a few people, in a few offices. These are dozens and dozens of people, both in Asia and in Europe, whose day job it is to work with data and provide insights to AS Watson. And I guess at a holistic level, what we wanted is a fifth slide on here. What we want is something like this for HR, looking at our internal customers. So if AS Watson's invested in analytics, what's happening with HR? So you'd be unsurprised that an organisation of our size does do a level of organisational KPI reporting for HR, but it is very basic. So we track the KPIs that you would expect an organisation to track. So we've got headcount, turnover, absence, diversity and inclusion. And all of those things have standard definitions across our business. But the problem is, it's Excel. It's incredibly labour intensive. And all the problems that come with that. I'm not going to ask for another poll as to who's still doing this, because I fear I won't get many hands. But lots of spreadsheets coming in from different parts of our organisation, all trying to be merged together centrally, fixing the data errors, fixing the broken formulas, all the back and forth, before eventually you're able to consolidate a set of numbers and classify them as that kind of period's numbers, whatever period it is you're working to. Now for us, we do this process every quarter. It takes about 2 weeks to complete. So by the time we get the numbers, they're already 2 weeks out of date. And then we've got another 12 weeks before we get our next set of numbers. So we have something, but it's nowhere near fit for purpose for us as an organisation. Within our brands, or within our business units, as we sometimes call them, things are a bit better than that. So much of the KPI reporting is automated. There are even pockets of what we would describe as kind of good analytics practice happening in those brands. But it's all very locally focused, right? So it works locally in the business unit, but it doesn't give us as an organisation with this scale the opportunity to kind of leverage that across the whole business. So we absolutely need to do better. So if we've got teams working with data, not focused on HR, what's happening with technology at AS Watson? Technology often, a big source of data. What I would say is that, or worth noting, is that AS Watson in Europe is an organisation that's come together solely through acquisition. So whereas the first store that opened in Asia 180 years ago, single store, grew the business to the size it is today, in Europe, these 10 brands are all acquisitions in the past circa 20 years. So what that's led to is a very fragmented kind of technology landscape in our organisation. So across our 10 brands, we essentially have a different HR and a different payroll system almost in every brand. We've got a number of workforce management solutions in place. We do have one social and communications platform, but it's only in use in 2 of the regions. And where we've made some success recently is in the area of talent management. So we do have one talent management solution that operates across the whole of our European area. So we've got all 62,000 people in Europe are all able to access our talent management. And for talent management, for us, that's covering recruiting, onboarding, learning, performance, and later this year we're going to be adding succession. So I'm sure you're all familiar, all the expertise around data in the room, I'm sure you're all familiar with the kind of analytics maturity model or analytics maturity curve. Now, in many parts of our business, I'd say that we're quite well progressed along this curve, certainly up towards the top right. I think when we first started looking at this from a kind of HR perspective, initial reaction was, crikey, it looks a little bit like a 9-box grid. We do like a 9-box grid in HR, and actually like a 9-box grid, great place to be, seemingly, is the top right of the slide. What we started to realise, I think, is that there is no kind of quick way. If you want to establish a strong kind of foundation around analytics in HR, there's no kind of fast or shortcut straight to this top right. We believed you needed to start at the bottom and work your way up. So our data teams, those teams that we aspired to be like, the ones I mentioned at the beginning, they all backed up that kind of assumption and said that was correct. They recited a story of starting a journey, in many cases a good number of years ago, where they started bottom left on this diagram and started by establishing kind of well thought through KPIs to measure what was happening in the area of the business that they were focused on. And what was interesting to me is those KPIs actually still form the foundation of what they do today. And actually, they've become part of our organisation vocabulary. So most people in AS Watson, if you were to go up to someone and ask them what active rate is, or what member sales participation is, or what customer love scores are, they would all know what those things are. and they would all know why they're important for us to maintain those numbers for the benefit of our business. So we decided that in order to build that kind of true data culture in HR, that was what we needed to do. We needed to start at the beginning. We needed to establish a set of primary KPIs for our people data, aligned to business process, and that became our strategy for starting with Europe on analytics last year. So off the back of that, that's quite a big challenge. So we had an idea of what we wanted to do, but HR covers a lot of area and there's a lot of data. So we had this high-level strategy. We needed to think about, well, how can we move this forward to reality as quickly as possible? So what we decided to do was to run a proof of concept. And its purpose was to understand a little bit more about how we might go about delivering that strategy and how we might go about and where we might go about starting. Proof of concept was trying to do a high level kind of three things. So the first was a little bit of time travel. We wanted to try and kind of quite quickly showcase what it was that we were looking to do to our customers and stakeholders. We wanted to do some experimentation and have a bit of a play with our own data. And we also wanted to try out some new technology without committing to a lengthy contract. So I'm just going to talk through those in a little bit more detail. So what do we mean by time travel? So I guess the analogy I would use is we wanted to create almost like a movie trailer for our organisation, find some way where we could show people what was coming. We'd agreed what we were going to deliver, but we wanted to demonstrate to them as quickly as possible so that they fully understood. Because we'd use the words, we were going to establish primary KPIs, we were going to have standard definitions across the whole of Europe, everything was going to be aligned to business process, we were going to give them amazing dashboards that enrich the data through visualization. We wanted to actually show them what that meant. So if you like, it was to kind of consolidate that kind of verbal contract we'd had with them so that we were absolutely going to meet their expectations and hopefully generate some excitement about what we were doing. Experimentation. So there was a whole bunch of things we wanted to do. The proof of concept that we did in the summer last year it was about 10 weeks over the course of July and August and into September. And these are just the kind of headline things that we were trying to kind of experiment with and play with. So we wanted to have a go at connecting to multiple data sources. We wanted to connect to our HR systems, we wanted to connect to our talent suite. We've got a lot of data that I would describe as homeless. It lives in Excel, so I guess Excel, strictly speaking, it's home, but that's not a robust home for it. So we wanted to have a play with bringing that data that lives in Excel and giving it a home where we could use it and access it consistently alongside other data. We wanted to look at whether an off-the-shelf HR kind of data model would work for us. Our culture at AS Watson is we love to build technology. We're not a big buyer of technology, but we wanted to start quickly. And one of the things we wanted to prove is, would an off-the-shelf product work for us? We also use quite a lot of business intelligence tools. So those data teams that I talked about earlier, all the work they do is in Tableau. Our business units, a lot of what they do is in Power BI. And we also knew that if we were to engage with a new vendor, it's highly likely that there was going to be another kind of front-end or business intelligence tool that was going to come with whatever solution we were looking at. So we wanted to have a try with those different things. I mentioned the acquisitions of the various brands that have brought together AS Watson in Europe. Those businesses are still kind of very independent. So whilst they're part of the AS Watson organisation, it's a very decentralised operating model. So whilst we want to have a kind of centralised capability around data and analytics, we need really quite sophisticated user access control so that we can kind of federate that access to data down through whichever solutions we deliver, and to make sure we can make the data available that people need, but crucially only the data that they need, and not able to see anything that shouldn't be available to them. And lastly, out-of-the-box dashboards. I mentioned we love to think we can do everything ourselves, and we do things ourselves the best, but were out-of-the-box dashboards going to work for us, and again, enable us to speed up on our journey. So we were already working with SplashHR a year ago. We were working with Splash. We used their technology, some other things. And they had a module, SplashHR, which looked like a really good fit for what we were trying to do. It even had plug and play, often claimed but actually rarely seen, plug and play capability with some of our HR systems. And essentially what we were looking for the proof of concept was a chance to try before you buy. So it looked good, but did it do what it said it could do on the tin? There was a commercial element to the proof of concept, but we were of the opinion that the learnings we would gain, bearing in mind where we are as an organisation, we're starting this journey, it's crucial we start it in the right way and pointing in the right direction. We were confident that investment in the proof of concept would absolutely pay back in learnings, if nothing else. And of course, if we ended up moving forward with Splash, then those learnings from that proof of concept would kind of roll forward and translate into any kind of future deployment project. So I guess the question is, did we take that leap? Was the proof of concept a success, and did it give us what we needed to enable us to start with a clear and confident plan? Have we started? Where and why? And the answer is that it did. It really was a huge success. It really helped crystallise our thinking, the proof of concept. It helped us formulate a clear plan, and it did give us that kind of movie trailer, that mechanism to communicate to our stakeholders what it was that they were going to be getting and generate kind of that excitement and appetite ahead of time. And this is what we're doing today. So we're going to be using SplashHR. It's going to be our data warehouse for our European businesses. We're going to be using Tableau as the primary visualization tool. I'm going to come back to a couple of these points in a bit more detail. We're going to establish primary KPIs. Initially, we're going to focus on recruiting, learning, and performance. We are going to deliver group standard dashboards. So we're going to deliver at least one dashboard for each of those areas, which we're going to make available to all of our brands around Europe. But crucially, we're also going to add self-service access to our data, to the data for our brands. Let me just kind of talk a little bit more about a couple of those. So Tableau, why Tableau? Why have we chosen to use Tableau versus the Splash BI front end or versus Power BI? And the big reason is we're already using it. It's the kind of data tool of choice, data visualization tool of choice. Those data teams that I keep referring to, the ones that we want to be like, where we want a fifth slide, it's the tool of choice for those teams. As an organisation, there's already a really high skill level around Tableau, not only in the kind of the data science community and the people that are doing the work with the data and building the dashboards, but also in the end users, in the consumers of the dashboards. They know how to navigate Tableau. They know how to access things, how to use the different features. Also, Tableau are what at AS Watson we call a technology partner. For an organisation of our size, this is all of them. There's not very many. So for us, I think it was a key thing when we went to our investment committee, when we looked to start the project that we ultimately started with Splash at the beginning of the year. We didn't have to go and explain, we're doing great things for HR, but do you really need another reporting tool? Is there really a need for another tool for our users to navigate? The fact that we were able to communicate that we're using not only a strategic tool, which is always a positive thing, but we're actually kind of getting behind and promoting further adoption and further use of something which the business had already invested in and put its weight behind. So that was really quite powerful for us. Why do we start with recruiting, learning, and performance? So firstly, mentioned earlier, we've got a single source of data. So we've got our talent suite. It's got the data for all of our European businesses in one place, and we'd established through the proof of concept that we were able to access that data. We had a very good set of data within there, and we could navigate it and assemble it all by the hierarchies that we use in our organisation. It was also an area that essentially at organisational level we were blind to. So I mentioned the manual KPI reporting that we've got earlier. And whilst it's far from perfect, Excel nightmare, you might say, we did have, and we do have, at least some numbers around some of those things. So we do know our headcount, we do know our turnover, we do know what our D&I mix is. Yes, we don't know it as accurately and as timely as we would like, but we have something. in the area of talent management at organisational level, we were essentially blind beyond the kind of basic operational reporting that we do. And lastly, we live in an era of huge challenge around attracting and retaining right people. So someone's already mentioned the Great Resignation, I think, this morning. There's the war for talent, the big quit. This is a really difficult area for businesses and no least for us. It's an area that we really struggle. So shining a light on this area for the first time for our business through data, we thought was going to really be a good place to start and something that was really going to add value to our organisation. And lastly, self-service. So I've mentioned a few times, our businesses are quite different. They are quite independent. We knew that we could deliver the most amazing dashboards from the centre. We could present the data by every dimension you could think of. We could give them all the filters in the world, but we were never going to do a one-size-fits-all. We were never going to be able to deliver from the centre a set of dashboards that was going to work across a population of 10 brands, 62,000 employees spread all across Europe. So giving our colleagues in the business units constrained access to relevant, clean, well-defined data was absolutely going to be key to our journey. Because any solution that we were delivering had to work not just for us as a parent organisation, we want it to work for our customers in our brands and business units as well. And I'm going to conclude the story with just two dates. So 23rd of March, so a date just gone and a date just coming. So the 23rd of March was our annual HR conference. Digital, unfortunately, this year for obvious reasons. We get all of our HR community together once a year, and there's an internal conference talking about various business initiatives and things that are happening in HR. My team, the HR systems team, were asked to come along and do a half-hour slot to talk about what we were doing in analytics and to actually showcase some of the work we've been doing. So what we were able to do was to actually show an early version of our recruitment dashboard. Recruitment is to be the first dashboard that's going to go live. This isn't one that we produced in the proof of concept last year. This is one that we're working on today, that we made available soon to our businesses. And we managed to showcase that. So it's well over 200 attendees from around the HR teams in Europe. And the reception was amazing. It was really kind of nice. My team were demonstrating, and the chat thread, which we've all become familiar with over lockdowns as the method of interaction, was just kind of littered with, clapping emojis, heart emojis. Wow, fantastic, amazing. It was a real kind of positive affirmation that we were on the right track. And the 14th of June is essentially when they're going to get it. So, or at least that's when we sign it off based on current plans. So we're really hopeful to start our journey launching our recruitment dashboard that we've been working towards over the last 12 months around the middle of June, and that's shortly going to be followed by learning and performance. So just 3 takeaways to conclude what I've got to say to you this morning. So 3 things that I guess in hindsight I would look back and say, what are the things that stood out for me? So the first one is to really understand where you are today as an organisation. If you accept that embedding analytics into your organisation as a kind of way of working moving forward is going to be some kind of journey, then it's crucial that whilst you might have aspirations about a destination, you absolutely need to know where you are today. For us, that was quite initially humbling to realise we were at the beginning, but actually that quickly turned to excitement, that was fine. We had a plan, we knew what we were doing, and we were confident we were doing the right thing. I haven't talked much about data, and maybe that's quite telling, because we did talk a lot about data at the beginning. We decided to not worry about it too much, to start and see what we had and see what it told us. And that's absolutely the right thing. Our data isn't perfect. We've got a lot of work to do to tidy up our data, but people won't tidy it up just for the sake of it. So what we found is that through doing that proof of concept, through bringing that data to life, through showing people what we have today, warts and all, giving them a reason to want to look after it, showing them the value that it can deliver, and therefore the kind of missed opportunity, if you like, where the data isn't how you want it to be, that's absolutely the way to do this. That would be my recommendation if you start tackling data first, my fear would be you'd never start. And leverage some kind of existing strategy if you can. So for us, that was IT. But the same, if you're going to your investment committee or your board, or wherever you need to go to get things signed off, if you can present what you're doing in a way that complements what the business is already doing. So we've talked about a couple of things for us. One was focusing initially on an area that's a big challenge for us as an organisation. But also for us, we jumped on the coattails of the investment in Tableau around IT. Then getting that external support will absolutely make your life a lot easier and get you a lot more kind of supporters than it will objectors to your plans. And that's the end of what I've got to say this morning. So I was just going to hand over to Stephen. I think had some comments.
Well, hopefully I'm back on. I think it's been a good success from our point. It's nice to blow our own trumpet. But, however, it's been an interesting learning experience. And I think maybe if you're all on your journey here, maybe some people online, but I think one of the things we learned was making sure, and you did a great job around this, making success internally, was the project team alignment. That was a real big win from that sort of thing. And also making sure that exec involvement was there as well from that start as well. And leveraging the existing infrastructure is also a good one for us, which then we learnt a lot about our own capabilities, especially around security and Tableau, right, which we can do a great job. I think we've only got a couple of minutes, right? I'm sure if there are any questions, it'd be good to have those. I don't know if we can't see anything online, but I think one of the things that I always get asked is, what are you trying to measure and what are the expected outcomes for that journey, I would say. I don't know if anyone would like to see that or what that language of analytics is for you guys moving forward, but what are the lessons learned and how will you leverage that moving forward around your expected outcomes?
Well, I think, is that still working? Yeah. I think for us it's about establishing that first firm foundation initially. And what's exciting actually is already, even though we haven't launched anything, you can already see the internal conversation is moving towards kind of more exciting areas. So I'm not saying that what we're doing isn't exciting, that we're going to be implementing some KPIs that will really help us understand what's going on in our HR teams. But our HR teams are starting to see the opportunity and starting to talk about that kind of what I would describe as a non-data professional. I'm an IT guy. That kind of next level metrics. They're starting to talk about things like the effectiveness of learning. Which according to the L&D guys is like a holy grail, right? If you're going to do training, you need to know that it's doing what you want it to do. And they can start to see, through the work we've shown them already, where they might get to that. If we talk about recruiting, so you'll imagine, you'll know what our dashboard's going to look like, right? It's the recruitment funnel, it's time to hire, time to fill, cost, source, recruiter, efficiency, all that stuff. But they're starting to talk about quality of hire. So that real kind of business ad, and as mentioned at the beginning, those metrics that our data teams use that have become the vocabulary of our business, we would love that for HR. So we would love common language in our organisation to be, but what was the quality of the hire happening by that team? What is the effectiveness of that learning programme? That's kind of where we see things going.
Great, and I think, how are we for time, David? Are we
1 minute.
Okay. Any comments from over here in the comment, or are there any comments around the journey they're on, or any insights you'd like to share any further with, or we can get off the stage? It's entirely up to you. David, someone got something to say? No? Hopefully this resonates with some of you who have already been down this journey, but it's always a good insight to remember. Okay, cool. Yeah.
So what's the ultimate ambition for people analytics at AS Watson? Because we've seen in retail companies in particular, people analytics can be really powerful. So
I said it at the beginning, I think, that kind of, that fifth team on that slide. So at the moment for us, data doesn't make up part of the daily conversation around HR. Yes, we track some of the kind of standard numbers, but there isn't that the data says, right? So our chief operating officer the other day when we were talking about what we were doing, she described a world where you absolutely want it to be the data says, not Joe says. Joe's the HR director that she was talking to at the time. We want to be in that place where HR are making decisions, recommendations, or following a certain path, and they're doing it because the data supports that that's the right thing to do. I think ultimately that's where we want to be.
Great. Well, Matt, Stephen, thank you very much indeed. Matt, I do suggest talking to Jordan and Oliver, who've both worked in retail organisations and done people analytics. Find them in the break. Thank you very much.
Thank you.